I'm Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease. Death, taxes, and the Bills beat the Oh, wait a minute. The Dolphins reversing some very, very disturbing recent history with a brilliant performance today against Buffalo.
Hey, Jeff Scanina here. The only one that said that we had a chance on Wednesday was me, and I was right.
These are lies.
Jeff Scanina is right. I did say the Dolphins had no chance, and I've never been happier to be wrong. An inspired effort today by Miami. We're going to talk about it.
Fins up. It's the Dolphins squad. Everything Miami Dolphins every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from South Beach. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Sunshine, speed, and squad goals. The Dolphins Squad Show starts now.
Yes, it does, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network right here at Locked On, and we're all very proud of that. Kyle Crabb's a big part of it for a long time. Jeff Scanina here in year one, and we are killing it with the Squad Show. Thank you so much, by the way, for helping make us #1, and thanks for being here today to celebrate good times. Jeff Scanina, you're not the only one that said the Dolphins had a chance. My closing comment that I just watched before we started the show from Wednesday was the Dolphins will keep this tight into the fourth quarter. They'll give the Bills everything they can. Then I called the Bills fans Buffaloes, half of them anyway, which actually is really satisfying right now. Although I did not say the Dolphins would win, and I could never, Jeff Scanina, in a million years have predicted the way the Dolphins would play today. They got Josh Allen to turn the ball over twice. Cook fumbled once. Allen had the interception and the fumble. And Devon Achane with the game of his career, 225 total yards, 174 on the ground, and 2 big touchdown runs to put the game away in the fourth quarter as the Bills made their push. He housed it from 59. He housed it from 35. 30-13 Miami, and the first win over those Buffalo Bills, and nobody circles the wagons and runs home with their tail between their legs like the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, no, it was an exciting game. To come out, defense playing well from the get-go. We had one out on downs, on 4 downs. We got off the field, and then a big turnover. Then we also had 2 3 and outs to start the game off, and you can't ask anything better from Weave's defense right there.
Kyle, you've been waiting almost 5 years for this, brother, since 2021 in January. First time, and we talked about this on the show. I kept saying the Dolphins play the Bills tough. The Dolphins play the Bills tough. And you said, yeah, but they never beat them. And now they can't say that anymore. What a complete performance by this football team. Not mistake-free, couple things to work on, but we wondered how they would come out after Chris Greer was dismissed, after the Phillips trade. How would all those guys in that locker room respond after the 10-day break and that bitter pill against the Ravens? We got our answer and then some today. They put it all together, and they smashed Buffalo.
Yeah, that's the key, right? As we said, well, they played all these close games against Buffalo, and then they never make the play at the end of the game. Don't put yourself in a position where you have to make a play at the end of the game to win the game, right? Just keep staying methodical and running the ball and getting turnovers. And I think that's what stands out to me. Obviously, Tua had 2 picks in this game, but from Josh Allen's perspective, you force some mistakes. You force him to get aggressive. You could feel in the second half, he says, okay, I'll put on the cape and I'll try to do the thing where I carry the team and light it on and get the team going. And then there's that 4th down short yardage scramble where he's got the first down by 10 yards and he just chooses to keep going. And it's that extra effort and these guys hunting the football and they pop the ball out for a turnover there. And those kinds of plays, you haven't had that opportunity where the ball bounced your way. The times in which the ball was on the ground today, the ball bounced Miami's way. And it was kind of mad scrambles and scrums for the ball. Love the effort. I love seeing guys like Juju Brents getting an opportunity to play. I think that's, as we talk about what this season is from here on out, it's about getting those opportunities with young guys, get them out there, see what they look like. And I'm glad Z talked about the defense with Anthony Weaver, just because I thought they played a phenomenal game. They really did.
Yeah, they did. And Z, they pick Allen off in the end zone. They forced that fumble. I bet everybody's happy to have Bradley Chubb in Miami still after all the talk he had to hear from guys like us in the media saying, why didn't they trade Bradley Chubb? I think he was listening, man. He played his best game of the season today. BS penalty notwithstanding at the end of the game that allowed the Bills to score late. But I want to say this about the Dolphins defense, Z, and I know you're a defensive player and a defensive coach, so this brings a big smile to your face, especially after you waited for 3 hours to get on a plane this morning because of the weather in Chicago. But the Miami Dolphins had allowed 32.6 points per game to the Josh Allen Bills. Today, they held them scoreless for 3 quarters, man. And then in the fourth quarter, when the Bills made their run, the Dolphins actually not only matched them, they outscored them in the fourth quarter to just mitigate that push. But back to that point, man, 32.6 a game, scoreless through 3 quarters, held them to 13 today.
Yeah, no, it was a fun game to watch finally. Coming out of half, I was worried again because we were a slow starting second half team, especially on defense. And they had, when Buffalo the ball first, I'm like, oh, here we go. Because they're driving down, and we got to stop, got a turnover, and that's like sparked it for those guys. And they played like their, tails on fire out there. They were flying around, making plays downfield and never giving up on any play. It was great to see.
Yeah, and Kyle, it didn't start so well. A penalty on the first play of the game. How do you get a full start on the first play of the game? Drives me crazy. And then like a 1-yard play, a 3-yard play, Tua, the first of his 2 interceptions. And you're going, oh, no, not a good start against this Buffalo team. But the defense holds and forces a punt. And then Miami is up 16-0 at halftime. It ended up being a scoreless third quarter. But Kyle texted the group. He's like, don't anybody say anything and jinx this when it was 16-0. And then you kind of felt for a little bit, maybe, Kyle, in that third quarter that the Bills would make a push. They started to move the ball. The Dolphin defense really stepped up to the challenge today in that third quarter, holding Buffalo scoreless.
Yeah, what surprised me and what's kind of been the story the last month or so for Miami has been the explosive plays, right? And giving up explosive plays. And James Cook's been as good of an explosive play runner as anybody in football this season. And you kind of felt like Miami was gradually progressing in that way. And then they trade away Phillips, and you're curious what that's going to do for the front and the opportunities. And you give credit to Bradley Chubb. I thought he played inspired. I give credit to Matthew Judon, obviously without Chop Robinson out there, and Quentin Bell gets elevated for this game. And his linebackers are starting to get a feel for how to fit these young interior defensive linemen. And Jordan Brooks getting downhill in a hurry, and the young guys at the point of attack. We saw Zeke Biggers as a big-bodied rookie out there getting some snap and some run in this game. And I thought both Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips played well. So that kind of performance, man, like, say whatever you want about the big picture outlook for the Dolphins, but those investments in that area of the team, getting this kind of performance against that team with that offensive line, if you can build that moving forward, then whatever conversations we're having about what the future of this team looks like, you're going to look at that young nucleus of players on the front as an asset.
Yeah, Cole Strange and Larry Borum balled out today, man, on that right side, the young guys. And, Achane, can't say enough about him, Z. Just the way that he played today. He was breaking a lot of tackles, making so many guys miss. I was listening to Joe Rose and Jimmy Cephalo. They almost couldn't believe their eyes. They're laughing the whole time. I mean, they were literally just having an incredible time calling this game as the Dolphins played the way that they did. And hey, who knew all we needed was a couple of teams from upstate to New York to come down this weekend for the Hurricanes and the Dolphins to get back on track, right? Syracuse smoked by the U, and then the Bills smoked by the Fins today.
Yeah, it was great. Like I said, the guys came out and played their asses off today, and it was great to see, and the ball, Kyle said, the ball bounced our way on a couple of occasions. Finally, we've always, had to be the other way, you know what I'm saying? So today was a good day of football for South Florida.
Waiting for Ice Cube to bop in with the trophy. Today was a good day. And Kyle, I know it's a great day for you. Like I said, you've been waiting a long time. And, Z and I were talking before you joined us. You always have something to do right after the games real quick. But then you popped in and Z and I, one of the things we talked about before you came in was even the 2 picks thrown by Tua were both on deep balls, taking shots down the field. One, a bad choice into double coverage. They didn't read the safety right on the opening drive, and then the other one right when the rain started late in the second quarter. He can't throw a wet ball. But Z's point was, and I hate to steal your thunder, Z, but I'm giving you credit for it, man. Z's point was they were deep balls, taking shots, so they were almost like punts. So you can live with those a little better than some of the other ones he's thrown this year. Yeah,
and I think you probably had to come into this game and understand, especially the way that the first matchup between the two teams went. When we got to halftime, right, was that the first show that we all did together afterwards? Was that Thursday game? And we get the halftime, and Tua's average air yards downfield, like he averaged in the first half passes that didn't even go past the line of scrimmage for the entire first half of the game, right? So kind of making the decision to come out and take a few shots. Without the second one, especially with it being a blitz and a pressure and kind of off his back foot, I didn't so much like the execution of that one, but the idea, like I get it, you put it up, try to let Waddle make a play, but you take those and live with them because of how you ran the ball and how your defense played, and the fact that you got an explosive touchdown for Jalen Waddle where he's stacked and gets over the top of Malik Hairston earlier in the game. So if you can play complementary football, yeah, I'm willing to live with a couple of arm punts, especially when you get called for an illegal block in the back on one of them, and they end up starting inside their own 15-yard line.
Yeah, because those could also be 50-50 balls,
Yeah.
Also, you get a pass interference, and now you're moving the sticks, So, like I said, I get, why he probably launched it up there, hoping there's a 50-50 ball. We get the pass interference. We move the sticks deep down the field, and, we get the first down.
And nothing on the second one, Waddle fell down, right? And you could tell the footing kind of got away from guys in the second half. Even the one Achane touchdown run, Hayden Rusi, the tight end's in motion, and he slips and he's on his knees in the backfield and gets up and still tries to throw a block. So you could tell that kind of threw everybody for a loop for a little bit. So a little bit of adverse environment that goes into that second interception as well.
Couple things I want to point out, Z, and again, you as a coach, you got to love these things. How about Bailey pinning him at the 2, making him go 98 yards? And to their credit, they did. They burned a lot of clock and ran a lot of plays to do it. And then Buffalo committed a stupid penalty on Tua's second interception, a personal foul on an illegal block that they wiped out a return to the 40-yard line and got buried deep again. And then Josh Allen, always going to be Josh Allen trying to make that play. Kyle pointed out he had the first down by 5 yards before he fumbled. Always going to try to make that play. And, your greatest strength can also be your greatest weakness. And it doesn't usually work out on the weakness side for Josh Allen. It doesn't usually end in a mistake like that. But, he'd love to have that play back where he could have just picked up the first down and slid.
Yeah, he went for the quarterback sneak like he always does. He's a big, powerful guy back there. You don't have to tush push him because he's strong enough and, long enough to get a first down by stretching. But no one tackled him. And it kind of he was shocked. He kind of oh, God. And he just started going. And still nobody tackled him. He thought he was probably going to go all the way. I thought he was going to go all the way at first. Because sometimes those little short yardage deals, that's what they pop for big plays, And luckily, thankfully, we punch the ball out, and we get the ball back, and end that drive.
Kyle, you've been waiting to hear these numbers for a long time now. So many of these numbers, not these numbers, but the Bills actually had the ball for more time than the Dolphins did by about 3 minutes. They outpassed them by a ton. The first downs were about even. The penalties and penalties very close. The Bills had 6 for 67, Dolphins 5 for 35, 3 turnovers to 2. Bills to Dolphins, but what really stands out, this is the one you've been waiting for all year, Kyle. The Miami Dolphins ran the ball 32 times today, right, and they averaged 6.2 yards per rush against the Bills.
32 rushes to 21 runs, and this was not just, they're up in the second half 16-0 and trying to milk the clock. They had 8 more rush attempts in the first half than they did pass attempts in the first half. And the irony, I did the crossover with Joe Marino on Thursday, and we talked about keys to victory. And I said, one of the keys to victory for Miami in this game is don't call a game like you're trying to score 30 points, because that's how Buffalo gets you, right? And it's when you try to play fast and throw the ball and play with a lot of tempo. They'll take advantage of your mistakes in those areas. And for Miami to come out and methodically say, we're going to stick with the run. We had some minus runs that happened there. I think they had 6 minus runs on the day today. If you're willing to live with that, and you're willing to let it play out across the course of 60 minutes, Achane hits the home runs, and that's how you put the game on ice. And lo and behold, the one time you call the game for 60 minutes where you don't try to score 30 points, it's the game you actually score 30 points because you hit the home runs at the end of the game to put it on ice.
Yep, and the Patriots won a tough one against Tampa Bay, so double disaster for the Bills today. They lose in Miami, and they lose a game to New England. And they've already lost the one game they've played against the Pats this year, so that really is an extra game down, Z. So a huge loss for Buffalo today. Fins fans can take solace in that in a tough season right now. But before we go to break, Z, Achane had 22 carries for 174 yards. The 2 touchdown runs late, obviously, were a big portion of them, 59 and 35, but he also caught 6 balls for 51 yards out of the backfield. And we've been waiting all year for Achane to get that many touches in a game. It wasn't just the carries, it was the catches too.
Yeah, no, he had an outstanding game, on the ground and in the air. It was nice to see him go over 200 yards total offense. You get that out of him every week. You're in every game, and you have a chance to win every game, and we're going to win more of them.
That's the fight song, right? In the air and on the ground. They're always in control.
They played that song a lot today. Today's episode of the Squad Show is sponsored by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's Kyle Krabs, the happiest Dolphin in the world right now, possibly, although there are a lot of them that are leaving with a little bit of something, that's propelling that buzz for them in more ways than one. With Jeff Skanina, the former Dolphin, they haven't beaten the Bills like this since he played defensive line for the Miami Dolphins, and it was Doug Flutie and Rob Johnson. How long ago was that? Good God, sorry, Z. Anyway, I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Grease. We got to take a break and hear from our friends at Peloton. When we come back, we will pick it up right where we left off. The Miami Dolphins dominating the Bills on the line of scrimmage today. And we're going to just kind of go into a little bit of what happened over the last 10 days, coming off that Ravens loss, and what the Dolphins were able to do today to get things turned around. As they head towards Spain, that flight going to be a lot better as they leave tomorrow to go to Madrid to play the Commando Styles next Sunday. This is your Dolphin Squad Show on the #1 sports podcast network, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs. With features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance, you can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go, while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So, let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, there we have it. Grease, Z, and Kyle, segment 2 of your Dolphin Squad Show on the #1 podcast network in America, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Dolphins with their biggest win of the season, the first win over Buffalo since January of 2021. And Z, I'm going to start with you on this because you love when the defensive line plays the way the Dolphins did today. The inspired play of Bradley Chubb, but it was the whole entire unit. They were flying to the ball throughout the game, and they held James Cook. Not only did he put the ball on the ground, they held him to 53 yards on 13 carries. Allen only ran the ball 4 times for 31 yards. But James Cook, even with today's numbers, Z, he averages 5.7 yards per carry, and they held him to 53 yards.
Yeah, like I said, the run defense was outstanding today. It's just like 3 weeks ago against Atlanta, it was outstanding against another really good running back, right? Who was hot at the time. Yeah. We did a little, took a little step back last week in the second half and let it get out of hand, with Big King in town. But I thought today, we came back and we rectified our things. We played better defense. As I was watching it, the front was playing better with their hands and holding gaps and getting extension and being able to shed and come off plays, off of guys to make plays. And it was great to see.
Yeah, and Waddle had 5 catches for 84 yards and a touchdown too. And Kyle, thinking about that Ravens game now, the second half was a disaster, obviously, but you had the Falcons game before that. The way they came out in that first half against Baltimore, they looked really great and obviously made the mistakes, and they just kind of lost it in the second half. But had they been able to put that together in that first half against Baltimore and finish that game off, obviously, maybe things wouldn't have happened the way they did with Greer out the door and the things that happened over the last 10 days. So You've been doing a lot of shows. You did the emergency podcast when Chris Greer got let go. You were talking about this being the most important decision of the Stephen Ross era and regime, who's going to lead the football operations. But whoever it is, whether it's going to be Dan Marino or Zach Thomas or Jason Taylor or any of the speculation out there, someone completely different, whoever it is has to love what they are seeing. And I have to say this right now because everybody's ripped him. Give Stephen Ross credit for keeping Mike McDaniel, having the guts to do that, and give Mike McDaniel credit because they came out, even in the Baltimore game, they made mistakes, but they've come out ready to play with fire, with passion, and with heart against Atlanta, against Baltimore, and now today against Buffalo.
Yeah, the inconsistencies are maddening, but a win like this, and Buffalo has their own warts. They made some mistakes, but I don't want to take this game and make it about anything that the Bills didn't do in this game because the Dolphins, they handled and won the line of scrimmage for 60 minutes, really, right? So, like, I think this is less of the turnovers, the interception in the end zone for Josh Allen, the fumble when he's got a guy on his back, like those miscues compound to that, but it's not like the Bills didn't move the ball, right? They didn't move the ball because they didn't really possess the ball. And Miami had the early possessions where they had the success moving the ball. Give credit to Anthony Weaver too. Like people ready to punt on Anthony Weaver, right? This Dolphins defense since October 1st, they're top 12 in the NFL in EPA per play defensively. They are top 5 in rush defense. Like all of the rushes that they've given up, there's been some explosives, but the vast majority since October 1st, last 6 weeks, they're 4th in the NFL in rush defense from an EPA per play standpoint. And they've had some short fields. That was the Cleveland game. That was the Baltimore game where those games really got away from you. Some short fields, mistakes offensively, the turnovers. They lead the league in turnovers. It's going to be up and down. And there's a lot of young players that are playing, and I think you could tell that when you watch them play. But if they can harness this kind of performance, and as we evaluate the second half of the season, all the talk about wins against quality opponents and can't beat teams with winning records. Well, they got one here, right? And then if they can stack this and compound this, it is going to make the evaluation for Mike McDaniel and Anthony Weaver and the rest of the in-house people that run the football operation from a coaching level and a player's level. It's going to make it really interesting because, you can go up and down, and as good of a win was this is, you had as bad of a loss 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago against Cleveland, right? So who are we? Can you start to string these together? And that's why I thought no matter what, the right decision to fire somebody and kind of create the urgency in the building was so necessary. And if you chose for it to be Mike McDaniel or if you chose for it to be Chris Greer, great. They obviously made the decision to part ways with Chris Greer, and now this is your first evaluation opportunity for, hey guys, everybody's rear end's on the fire now. Who are you? Show the world who you are week over week. Check the first box. It was a good start.
Yeah, and the Dolphins get their 3rd win of the season, a big one over the Buffalo Bills, another division win to go with the one against the Jets. And obviously, it's something you're really fighting. I mean, playoffs, not something you can think about with this record right now, but putting together a streak like they have a couple of times already under Mike McDaniel, not something you want to keep doing, Z, right? Where you lose a bunch of games, then you win a bunch, but better to correct it as you go and get better. And there have been a lot of scenarios, and I think we were maybe the first ones to talk about this. Maybe not, but I like to say that we were here on the Squad Show, Z, about the possibility of trading Tua this offseason, which we can get to later in the show, because I want to stick with the defense. I put up there Miami Vice. That's not Miami Vice as in let's go to the clubs in South Beach and drink till we pass out in the sand. That's not Miami Vice as in the Tony Montana kind of Vice that we've seen over the years, but Miami Vice as in Vice grips on defense. 3 sacks, 5 tackles for a loss today against the Buffalo offense that had averaged 32-plus points per game against them. Jordan Brooks played a hell of a game today with 12 tackles, 5 solo. Dodson was all over the field. I thought Minka Fitzpatrick played his best game since he's come back. And how about Jack Jones for all the crap he's taken this year? 2 tackles for a loss, played a hell of a game too. And I don't mean to just name those guys, but they were the ones who stood out to me, Z.
Yeah, no, like I said, the defense played great. I know a couple times they let the ball get caught in front of them, but they vice tackled and they came down, stopped it right, catch and tackle, which is perfect. That's what you want, a bend don't break type defense. If fucking Zach got his first sack, today, finally. He's, maybe he's going to crack open and start going on a tear and get some sacks, So it was great to see, that all in all, the defense was solid. Big play by Fitzpatrick on the 2-point play, right? Stop that from getting in. That was big at that point of the game, because if you let them in, like, oh God, now it's a 1 score. It was a 2 score after that. So, Buffalo had to be a little different on their play calling. They had to get fast, score quick, because they needed 2 scores to, take the lead. So that was a huge play. But the one downer side, though, that I thought was those 4th down plays where that dude's back there baking a cake, a pizza, and a martini.
Yeah.
Because he was back there forever. Now, our coverage was phenomenal, but we got to get home. As a pass rusher, you got to get home. That was like 1,000. That was like 10, 1,000, 12, 1,000, 20. And he's just standing there. Like, holy cow. That's the only, sour point that I have about the game.
Yeah, they could have gotten a little more pressure on him there. And Z, I want to keep it with you, then go right to Kyle. No need to come back to me in between. But what did they do early? Because Buffalo's offense was all out of whack. I mean, obviously the Dolphins just completely confused them early in the game, and they didn't recover. I mean, they made some adjustments at halftime. The Dolphins made more, but in the run game, they took that away. But there was one play where it was 4th and 1, and they tried to roll them out, and they tried to throw it down the field. The Dolphins were ready for that. What did they do to the Bills' offense to start this game that had them so confused and befuddled out there?
I just think they flustered them, with different looks and everything. I don't know what the coverages were because I really wasn't watching that because I didn't really, my eyes are not trained for that. I'm sorry. But, well, so I think it flustered him a little bit because I know they did some drop balls, like that 4th down. That was another 50-50 ball. You didn't get it up high enough because, the DB had a good play on it. It was to the tight end, I believe. You think he'd throw a little bit higher, try to get the guy to stretch out to catch that over the DB because he was shorter. But all in all, I thought, we've just kept flustering Josh, and the defense played well. They played gap control up front to stop the run, and they got him into 3rd downs. They got off the field.
Yeah, I think I like seeing – I mentioned his name earlier, but getting Juju Brents out there to play in coverage because we talked about the run defense – and those young guys inside came to play. And I thought there was good gap integrity early. And they didn't get in a lot of short yardage 3rd down situations, right? And then when they got the 4th down early, they came out and they went play action and took the shot, to your point, Grease, where Minka has the good play. But I just looked at Buffalo in this game, and especially once Kincaid went down with the hamstring, you're asking yourself, okay, who are the separators, right? Like, who's the guy that's going to separate? Keon Coleman gets 8 targets in this game. And he gets a 35-yard touchdown because Ethan Bonner can't locate the ball. So when you're getting into evaluation mode, right, you got a 4th-year guy in Bonner. You got a guy who you got in waivers in Juju Brents, who is a former top 100 pick, really physically talented. He was all over the place making plays. He recovers the 1 fumble. He was persistent. They had Jason Marshall as another big guy as a corner who was playing outside after he was moved inside to nickel earlier in the year. Was injured, had an IR stint, comes back. I think Miami had some young, physical, athletic guys that they kind of played a little different in that regard from what I could see, where they were a little bit more crowding and they kind of dared, okay, stack us vertically and beat us over the top. And whether it was Juju Brents or Jason Marshall, who almost had an interception on another target downfield on the near sideline to Keon Coleman, they didn't really get those successful separation plays on the outside. And then Brooks, Minka, those guys showed up in a big way in the middle of the field. And then Kincaid goes down, and that felt like that was your best weapon to kind of be a drive starter and get some explosive plays over the middle of the field. So I thought once he went down, the math really changed. But I think Miami getting some guys, Rasul Douglas is a guy you don't really want to leave and turn on run coverage in the contact window because he was a 4.65 guy when he came out, right? Now he's in his 30s. So you're running the risk of getting stacked vertically at that point. So these young guys that played physically and then played on the outside, I think that kind of put a new layer and a new spin on Miami's coverage stuff that kind of forced Josh to work through his progressions, and then he comes down to the ball, and they tackled well today.
Yeah, they did. And Z, before we go to break, the first, and I want to talk about on the other side what I thought was the real turning point and maybe the biggest key to the entire game today. We'll pick that up on the other side. But before we hit the break, Z, the Bills' first few possessions of the game, right? First one, punt, right after the Tua interception. Next one, downs. Next one, punt. Next one, fumble. Next one, punt. Then end of half, and the first possession of the third quarter is an interception. So a lot of punts, downs, and a couple of turnovers. Those aren't the typical Buffalo Bills possessions in the first half into a third quarter of the game. And that's dominant defense for the Dolphins, holding them scoreless through 3 quarters. But as I read off those possessions one by one, it's almost hard to believe it's the Dolphins defense doing that against the Bills.
I was just going to say, you talking about the Bills defense there? I mean, I know they're not that good this year. You know, they're struggling too. But yeah, I mean, that's not what we've been seeing the last 7 weeks or so. You know, we haven't seen that dominance like that. And I think today is a good feather in their cap, you know, to take on for the rest of the season now, especially going over to Madrid next week to play the Commanders, you know, with another quarterback that can run around. I know Mariota would probably be the guy playing, and he can still run around. He's a big-time runner, can break tackles. You know, it's a hard guy to get down. So that's just good momentum for us now to, like, pack our bags tonight, get on that plane tomorrow, and get out there for practice and everything and get accustomed to it out there to have another good run and stopping the run, because the Commanders like to run the ball too, and get after Mariota.
There was a very clear turning point in today's game that set the tone for the entire game. And I think it, you know, right after the Dolphin defense got that stop after Tua's pick, what the Dolphins offense did after that set the tone for the whole day and the rest of the game. We'll pick that up with Z and Kyle on the other side. I'm Grease. It's your Dolphin Squad show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now the #1 sports podcast network. Keep it here. Half the show still to go. Big win, 30-13. Dolphins over the Bills at an electrified, well, most of it anyway, Hard Rock Stadium today. Those Bills fans leaving disappointed. Too bad you spent all that money flying down here. Too bad the shutdown continues and you're going to be delayed. Too bad, Buffalo fans. It's a loss all the way around. We'll be right back to talk about that turning point on the Squad Show. Right after I tell you about Rippling. They didn't want to take Z off the screen. Look at that. It took twice to hit that button and get him out of there. But I'll tell you this, if you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's SAD, software as a service, and that is why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform of global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments in one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software created. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. Whether you want to run your entire HR and finance operations as one or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at RIPPLING, rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply with Rippling on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Z didn't want to leave the screen. I had to hit you twice to get you off of there, but I should have just left you up there to do that spot with me. But, man, I'll tell you what, 30-13, the Dolphins with the win. That's Kyle Krabs all the way to your right. Locked On Dolphins podcast. He hasn't stopped smiling. Where's the whiskey, Kyle? Where's the bourbon? And we got Z in the middle. He was delayed on a 3-hour flight. It wasn't a 3-hour tour, but it was a 3-hour. I'm showing my age with a 3-hour tour joke. But Z made it in time for the show. And, Jeff Scanina, all those years as a defensive coach in the NFL, I know you loved it when your offense took care of business early. So you come out, Tua throws the pick, right? You turn it over, right? You get a false start on the first play of the game. You move the ball 4 yards on 2 dink passes, and then you turn it over. Defense comes on the field. Boom, forces the punt. You got to love it. All right, offense, we stepped up. Do your thing. And to me, the key to the game today for Miami, the defense played great. But the way the offense came out on that next drive after they forced the punt, the defense comes out and forces the punt, 3 plays, 9 yards. They hold them, on the 3rd down, short of the 1st down. The offense comes back out on the field and goes 92 yards in 12 plays, 7.5 minutes, man. To me, that set the tone. That was the turning point of the whole game. And you start to think, wow, the Dolphins are actually taking control here. And it was that drive that did it.
Well, like I said, we've talked about this. If defense can stay off the field and the offense can move the ball, burn some clock, so we're not gassed out and tired, and that's when we get drove through as a defense. So the offense was out there, hit the run game going, had the long drives, kept us on the bench to get rested, get the water, and get ready for the next series. And I think that's what's, if their offense starting out that fast and putting the points up, it helped us on defense. And then you get more energy, when the offense is moving the ball, sticking it to them, long drives. You're like, all right, I'm fresh. I can go back out there, quick 3 and out. I'm back on the bench. And that's the mentality you have, and again, if we can continue that, we have a chance to make the run.
And Kyle, that's half the first quarter on one drive right there,
Yeah.
7.5 minutes. And then in the second quarter, a 10-play, 67-yard drive that ends in a field goal burns another 6 minutes, man. So you're burning 13.5 minutes of the first half on 2 drives on offense. And that goes back to the commitment to running the football that you've talked about all year.
That's right. The Dolphins had 4 of the 6 longest time of possession drives in this game, 7:27, 5:59, 3:59, and 3:41. Buffalo had the longest drive. It went 9 minutes and 1 second to start the second half, and then ended an interception in the end zone, right? So you add all of that up, Miami having those possessions for that time and damn near 2/3 of a quarter for Buffalo on their opening drive in the second half, come away with 0 out of that. That's part of the calculus in limiting Buffalo to 13 points, right? And I think the Dolphins did a nice job today staying committed to the run like we talked about, but then also not allowing mistakes to compound. To your point, Grease, talking about what a disastrous first offensive possession, but then to come out and go 12 for 92 and put it all together the way that they did and really stay committed to running the ball throughout that. And then you get down the low red zone and you come up firing and you hit Malik Washington on a well-placed throw away from the nearest defender in coverage. You tip your cap, right? And that's where they were at. Miami also had the 3 shortest possessions of this game, but 2 of those were 37 and 62-yard touchdown possessions with Devon Achane hitting home runs on those plays. So if you're going to not possess it, at least get 7 points at the end of it. And they did that too at the end of the game.
Yeah, and Ifeatu Melifonwu with a huge interception in the end zone too, because the Bills had an 11-play, 65-yard touchdown drive, Z. They had an 8-play, 98-yard touchdown drive, but maybe the biggest play of the game was that interception in the end zone when they went 14 plays, 77 yards, and came away with nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a backbreaker, for a team to go down. I mean, how many times did we get a turnover or something, in the red zone when they were driving? They were like driving. We were still hanging in there playing tough football and getting those turnovers. Again, a young defense like we have, that just helps you. It builds your character for down the road.
Yeah, and Kyle, what do you see as the difference, man, with these kids out there? I mean, the secondary got so maligned and so much crap throughout the season, not playing well early, so many injuries, being able to pull it together. Everybody wanted Coach Weaver gone, the entire defensive staff. But what do you think, and what have you seen that has really just propelled this unit, in particular the secondary, to play so much better in recent weeks?
So couple things for me. I think the first thing is it's a young man's game, right? And you got young guys out there versus guys that are older or vets that they just move a little slower, right? There's some teams you watch and so much stress that's on those guys to play out in space because you have so much grass to cover. It's a reactive position. You're playing backwards and you have to react and anticipate things. So to get young guys out there like Juju Brents, like what you saw with Jason Marshall today, I think that really helps. But then the other part of it is, when did these guys get here, right? And it's an unfortunate reality the way that the offseason went, that Minka gets here in July. Jack Jones gets here in August. Rasul Douglas gets here at the end of August. And by the second possession defensively of the season, Rasul Douglas is starting corner, right? So all of that time on task, all the injuries that took place at nickel, right? Well, now you get Jason Marshall back. You've had Juju Brents in-house for half the season to kind of get acclimated with what they're doing here defensively. And nobody wants When the expectations are to win and there's pressure to win, nobody wants to accept that there is an inevitability of these guys have to have time on task together and they have to grow together. And that's why I point to defensively, the rankings for this team defensively since October 1st, after the first 5 weeks of the season, and kind of looking what the products look like since then. It is getting better. It is progressing in the right direction. And I don't think it's a coincidence that these guys get some time on task. They get a little bit healthier and the product looks better. And I'm really fascinated. Like, I still think there's big picture problems and conversations to have. And a win like this doesn't change anything. But if you stack them and you successfully stack them, I'm really fascinated for what that can look like. And I'm interested to see if they continue to sustain this momentum because, Buffalo's been a little up and down. But at the end of the day, you have that kind of performance against a quarterback like that, you could play competitive defense any given week.
And see the young guys, right? A lot to build on. You're a defensive coach. There's a lot to build on with these young guys. And, that C word really coming out big time today and that Atlanta game and the first half against Baltimore, that confidence is growing, man. And I'm just wondering, as a coach, that's a beautiful thing, number one. But how do you nurture that? How do you keep building it? How do you keep growing it from here?
You just stay the course and you don't change anything. They've been doing great things the last couple of weeks. You don't change your preparation or anything. But, it stems back. This is a young defense, right? New guys, play first time playing with each other on a starting level. And the way training camp is nowadays, it's not as long as it used to be. So these young cats can't, get together and get the camaraderie going and the feel for each other. It takes a couple weeks. And unfortunately, with all the injuries we had during training camp and everything, it took a while to start the season to get, to play at full speed. Walkthroughs are walkthroughs. But when you play full speed, when your safety's got you, as a corner, or the corner knows, what to do with the linebacker. The linebacker knows how the D line's going to play. It takes a while to get that feel. And unfortunately, it took a while. We went through the growing pains early in the season. And the last couple of weeks, it's kind of shown. We kind of gelled a little bit better in our run defense. And today, I thought our pass defense was outstanding because, like I said, that dude was back there baking a wedding cake. He had nowhere to throw the ball. We just got to get better pass rush, which will come. We don't have like the true burner pass rushers inside. Zach has been held in check. He got his one today. Maybe he popped it, and here we go.
Yeah, and Kyle, I want to know if you have anything else to add about the defense before we go on to Tua and those turnovers not really killing the Dolphins today, but the defense bailing them out. Anything else you want to add about the defense's performance today?
Yeah, I think with a little bit of context, knowing that Chop Robinson didn't play in this game, certainly, that's the guy that wins with speed, and he had a really good performance the second time they played the Bills last year. So I think you felt his absence today, even though he hasn't necessarily played his best football thus far in 2025. And I want to give credit to Zach Sealer and the entirety of that rush plan with a guy like Josh, where I think it took midway through the third quarter, the first time he got outside of contain on the rushes. And that's what helped Zach Sealer make the play, is he's engaged with the center and Josh has to step up, and you kind of created some vertical push into his lap and simultaneously squeeze the pocket from both sides. And that complementary rush has not been a big piece of the puzzle thus far for Miami this year. So if they wanted to kind of methodically squeeze the pocket against Josh Allen, I would say that's something that you had success with, but you need to finish more of those reps. And look, credit Bradley Chubb. I don't know what the hell that taunting penalty was on him on that sack on that play, but that was a great rush win that he had against Deion Dawkins, where he sticks his left hand in there and creates that vertical displacement and ducks back inside, and Dawkins tries to speed turn him, but Josh has already kind of slid up in the pocket a little bit. So you need to see more of that. Give credit for Bradley for a great play on that rep. I'm not mad about whatever the heck that flag was. Unless he said something egregious on the field, but eager to see what it all looks like and continue to see how it continues to get better week over week.
Yeah, that was a weak penalty, Z.
Oh, it was crazy. I don't know, because they showed the replay. He wasn't even talking to anybody. I'm like, what are we doing? But he must have said something under his breath or something. And one of the refs
called me a name. He called me a name. I mean, I thought it was the NFL, Z. What's going on here, man? Every year, I don't even want to turn this into this, but I guess I kind of did.
Well, it is what it is. I'm not going to touch it. I refuse to.
Uh-oh. All right, you might be back on the sidelines. If anybody
No,
want to be a
no.
mark man.
Oh, I don't care about that. I've been a mark man my whole career, both playing and coaching. That's no big deal. But no, it's everybody's different. That's all I can say in this game. And you just just go to work.
Just go to work. And that's what we're doing here on the Dolphin Squad Show. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Grease, Z, Kyle, we're on YouTube live after the game. Then, of course, on Wednesdays when we go at noon Eastern most weeks. And then if we don't, we'll let you know about the time change. And, of course, we're live on YouTube. Then after the show, we upload, you download. Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher, Podbean, and Roku. And if you're listening or watching on any of those right now, you're going, what the hell is this guy talking about? Well, I'm going to be talking about FanDuel in a second. Sorry, Kyle, there is one more spot. I'll do this one since I kind of blew it on that end of things. But I'll tell you about FanDuel. We'll come back and we'll wrap it up talking about your favorite topic. You, Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback of your Miami Dolphins. We'll wrap it up with that, and we'll look ahead to the Commando Styles game next week in Madrid right here on your Dolphin Squad Show. All right, there we go. Let's talk about FanDuel, and I will tell you this about FanDuel. I think my computer's about to die here. I better make sure that doesn't happen during the live show. And there we go. A little electrification for you here. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, hey, FanDuel is giving new customers, that might be you, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in the world. And before we continue with the Dolphin talk, we have Tua to talk about still before we wrap it up, and we'll give our final thoughts as well as get you ready for the Washington game. And I just want to say, as a guy who used to pick up game highlights on tapes when I was an intern on Sunday Night Sports Wrap from Eric Spoelstra, on behalf of Z and Kyle, I just want to send our heartfelt condolences to him on the loss of his home, a total loss. And luckily no one was hurt as the Miami Heat's head coach was returning from Denver to find his home burned down. One of the greatest guys I've known in sports is Eric Spoelstra, the U.S. Olympic team coach, and he's got the Heat playing some real good basketball to start this season, guys. But what a tragedy for Spo to have to go through, and it just reminded me of that when I read that FanDuel copy about the NBA season and the great start the Heat are off to.
It's sad. It'd be devastating to come home and see your house burnt down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we send our hearts out to Spo and his family, but seeing his beautiful kids up there with him at the podium. And I used to pick up highlights from him on tapes to bring back up. They weren't high 8 even yet. I forget, the big ones in the old school days. And you'd have like machines and a video guy going back and forth. That's how old I am. But he was an intern in the video room when I used to go pick those up from him all those years ago, mid-90s. And look at him now, the coach of Team USA, a multiple-time champion. Unbelievable. All right, guys. Speaking of multiple-time champions, Dolphins would love it if Tua Tagovailoa would become one, but it's been a bumpy ride for him. It's been a tough year. He threw 2 picks today. The defense bailed him out. Yes, they did, with the turnovers they forced and keeping the Bills off the board as much as they did. We could be having a completely different conversation. Kyle, I'll start with you on this one with Tua. Those 2 picks deep down the field, we talked about that earlier, but he has, to me, played much better these last couple of, the Ravens game was a disaster, but early on they moved the ball down the field. The Atlanta game indoors, he was fantastic. And at times today, you saw flashes of why he got the $50+ million a year.
Well, I don't want to make this about the dollar amount on the contract, but I think if this offense is going to have success, and it is a whole separate conversation to talk about the contract, because with that contract comes certain expectations, right? You have a certain expectation on how that player is going to play.
Like not throwing 2 picks in a game.
Right. Well, and not leading the league in interceptions on November 9th, right? And, having the ability to access areas of the field outside of structure and all that stuff. But I think for Tua, he hit the deep ball to Waddle because he on schedule within the rhythm of the drop, gets to the top of the drop, hitches into the throw, the ball is out. Waddle does an outstanding job because he stacked Hairston vertically to get his body in line to track the ball, and Hairston trying to make a play on him runs directly into the back of him, and Waddle makes a play. But Tua gets the ball up and down within the construct and the timing of the drop. Like, that's really important when you take vertical shots if you're Tua. But we found the ability to get Jalen Waddle explosive plays, and we found the ability. This has been since Tyreek Hill has gone down. We've had more explosive plays without Tyreek Hill in the lineup than we have when we had Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on the field together. We've found that element, and then you've found some investment in the run game. And if this offense and if this coaching staff is going to survive and go to what I think the next iteration of it needs to look like, it needs to look more like this on a weekly basis. There's a reason I come on here twice a week and I bitch about how much they run the ball, because I think it's necessary for the evolution of, from a personnel standpoint and what they have, but also to kind of optimize who your quarterback is and who your best receiver is and who your best skill players are and what the offensive line needs it to be for how much time under tension they spend. So more game plans like this. Would love for you to mitigate some of the minus runs where you get 4 yards and then you get a 3-yard loss because they bring the corner when you send the guy in motion and they have the check automatically and then you're back to 3rd and 9. But this is what I want it to look like, because this is what I think it needs to look like with this quarterback, with this stable of backs, with an offensive line that's young and needs time to gel. And the less time you ask them to spend time under tension and in true drop back passing game, the better. And I think the proof is in the pudding with a game plan like this, I think.
15-21. They really ran the ball today, which meant a lot less of the passing game. So 15 of 21 attempts. He still threw 2 picks, Z, but he also threw the 2 touchdowns. The one to Malik was a thing of beauty, and then the one to Waddle was even better. So he did a great job, as usual, with kind of mastering the offense, the ball fakes, things like that really helped the running game, honestly speaking, right? But limiting his number of attempts and running the ball more seems to be the way to go with this team. But all that being said, Z, he's put up 30 points in 2 of the last 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You know, I mean, as a defensive player or on a team, you want points to win. And he's moving the ball. He's doing good things. Again, like Kyle said, the turnovers you don't want. You don't want 12 picks in November, by November 9th. That's not a good stat to have, to be leading the league in picks. You know, he's got to clean that up. But again, the defense, they didn't go out there and say, oh, here we go again off those picks. Because, you know, for 10 other times they were like, oh, here we go again. And then, you know, the team takes it down the field and scores. You know, again, I've talked about it in the past. You want to score off of takeaways, points off of takeaways for you, but not against you. And I thought the defense did a great job of holding their own after those interceptions and stopping them.
And by the way, Kyle, as I speak here, you see me on my phone. I'm checking the score. 14-3 Lions just starting the second quarter over Washington right now. So we could be looking at another 3-7 team, a pair of 3-7 teams next week in Spain for the NFL's last trip overseas this season. But certainly they had big expectations in Washington coming into the season. Daniels has been hurt. He's out today. A lot of things have gone wrong for them too. So I don't think either team is going to be too anxious to get on this plane, first of all. But second of all, Washington doesn't look like Washington looked when we first looked at this schedule.
Yeah, it's Daniels will be evaluated again after the bye, so it sounds like he's out of the mix. They've got injuries at wide receiver, so they're really banged up in that regard. Their pass rush has been awful this season. They kind of have a slow burn collection of guys on the edge right there, so they don't have kind of like what it felt like for us today where, hey, where's the guy that can kind of play with some juice and get a fast win? It feels like that whole front is missing that guy this year. And Dan Quinn's up there with the best of them as far as being able to cook up pressure looks and schemes. But it just feels like it's kind of lost some of the twinkle from last year, right? Which felt like it was lightning in a bottle with Jaden Daniels coming in. So I know they swung big this offseason, right? And their whole plan, their first year with Dan Quinn was a bunch of free agents on 1-year deals. They doubled down on a lot of those guys. And then they made the big swings for Tunsil, and they made the big swing for Deebo Samuel, right? And unfortunately, those haven't manifested in wins the way that they hoped it would. Marshawn Lattimore's down for them. So that they're a team that has a lot of disarray. And if you could be the team that's 3-7, but coming off a big win against a big rival, flying across the country to get ready for the game versus, if this score holds the way that it's gone thus far for Detroit and Washington, Miami should be feeling pretty good about their opportunity to come in and build off of this against an opponent that's kind of been kicked around like they have this season.
Yeah, and for a Dolphin defense that was 30th against the run in the NFL coming in today, Z, and ironically, you mentioned it earlier, they played Robinson and the Falcons really tough, and then Cook and the Bills today. And I don't think Cook had a huge game against them in the first game either, if I'm not mistaken. But Washington's only scoring 22 points a game, Z. And so for a defense coming off the performance that they had today, opportunistic against the Bills, and really shutting down that run game, this is an offense in Washington where you have to be, if you're Coach Weaver, thinking you can have some real success against them.
Yeah, I think he's just going to build on what he did this week, against the Commanders, and I think legitimately we have a good shot at this one again. I think that our defense is going to match their offense and play well against them. Again, just we got to make sure we take care of that quarterback because I know the guy's bounced around a little bit. He can still make some plays. And they're not changing the offense because he's in there. He's doing the same thing that Daniels could do too. They're pretty much the same with the mobility aspect of it.
Z, I'm going to leave it with you real quick before I ask Kyle some of the key matchups he's looking at least for right now in that game. And he'll get much more in depth with it all week long. And we will too on Wednesday with the Squad Show. And he will on Locked On Dolphins podcast on the #1 sports podcast network in the world, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But Z, how much does that flight and that trip you got to leave on Monday, how much does that take out of you as a player? And both teams have to do it, but what's that like? What's that whole experience like to have to go over there and play a game after that flight and then to fly back and play again, right after?
Well, I never did it as a player. Like I never played overseas. I played one preseason.
As a coach, right?
As a coach, I did the Giants. The Giants, we went over there and we played the Rams in London. And but we left Thursday night and then got there Friday, had a walkthrough Friday and Saturday and then played. I didn't see any difference, because again, we're going from New York to London, so it was not like it was like going from New York to Seattle, really, so it wasn't that bad for us, so I didn't see anything wrong with it, The only thing different is the field. The field was a little different, the different grass compared to what the guys used to playing over here. It's a little thicker over there, but all in all, to me, it was not a big deal.
Yeah, and both teams, I should mention and correct myself, they don't have to turn around and play the next week. They both have a bye after that game, Kyle. But that's still a hell of a trip to have to take over there. And you leave on a Monday, which changes your whole week schedule around. No days off after a win like this. You're right back on the plane. But for a team playing well like the Dolphins are on that high right now, I think that's actually good. Get on a plane together and just keep that team together and keep building that camaraderie and that confidence as a group.
Yeah, and I think the thing that stands out to me the most about knowing how Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins, kind of their psychology around travel and flying, and they talk about, you got some guys that were banged up after the Thursday game, and you got a lot of guys that, big guys didn't play. Julian Hill didn't play. Ollie Gordon was limited to 1 carry in this game. Rasul Douglas didn't play, right? You had some big guys down in this game. And hearing Mike over the last couple of years talk about when you get on planes, sometimes if you have soft tissue injuries, things swell up on the plane because of the altitude change and kind of the physiological impact of that. If you got guys that are banged up and dealing with soft tissue stuff and you get on the plane and it swells up and then it doesn't cool back down because you go out on Thursday or Friday for a Sunday game, I like the fact that they're going out early. I like the fact that they're giving themselves a chance to, okay, we're going to fly out. If there's anybody's body's going to react a certain kind of way, let's get it out of the way as early as possible and then take the week to go through the treatment and hope that guys and their bodies are where they need to be able to suit up and play on Sunday. So I like that element of this for Miami.
The element that I like is that you're not facing Daniels, just like you didn't have to face Penix against Atlanta because in between you had Lamar and Josh Allen. So Kyle Krabs, as we look at this game right now, what are a couple of the key matchups you feel the Dolphins could exploit in this game against Washington?
Yeah, I think if you're Miami, you got a really savvy linebacker in Bobby Wagner in the middle, and that's for Miami. The last couple of weeks, they've gone after some young guys at backer. They had a lot of success going against JT Bertrand in coverage and in the run game against Atlanta, who's a rookie. And then they have some young guys in linebacker in Buffalo that have played up into elevated roles. And I know Terrell Bernard's a really good player, but he's still a young player. And then at Baltimore has Teddy Buchanan at linebacker, who's a day 3 rookie this year. Miami, so much of it is misdirection and the motions and what they try to do with pre-snap manipulation with shifts and stressing your communications. You get a guy like Bobby, he's been around the block a few times. He's seen just about everything, right? So how they go about their game plan of attacking him in the middle, I think will be a really big piece of the puzzle on what they need to try to come up with from a game plan perspective to feel good about going out and trying to get a win.
And Z, Washington's much more of a running team with Mariota, who actually, he averages more yards per completion than Jaden Daniels. The completion percentage is higher, but the number of attempts much more per game with Daniels. So they're obviously running the ball a lot more with Mariota at QB.
Yeah, we got to stop the run. They're going to probably come out and, try to run the ball, test our run defense, see where it's at, and then go from there. So if we can stop the run like we have, in our last 2 wins, we got a chance and put the ball in Mariota's hands. And again, probably take the same kind of rush plan like we had today, like a mush rush. Keep him in the pocket, make him play quarterback. Don't let him use his legs to extend plays, because we saw what happens when a quarterback gets out and extends plays today. And we got to keep, Mariota in that pocket. We got to be able to, rush half a man on our mush rush and be able to peel off and, get some more sacks. We got to start building our sack numbers up.
All right, I'm going to go with my final thought first, since we're at the end of the show, guys. And this is something that could be very encouraging for a Dolphin fan right now. If you can pick up the win, a very winnable game, in my opinion, against Washington over in Spain, you come off the bye with the Saints and the Jets back-to-back. Now, the Jets are terrible, and the Saints have the 2 young QBs. They're a 2-win team, and the Jets are as well. So, and then you have the Bengals, a 3-win team in that mix too, along with the Steelers and the Patriots down the stretch. So if you can win this game right in Spain and come back with that 4th win, come back and take care of business against the Saints and the Jets, you're 1 game under 500. And that's my final thought, Kyle, as I throw it to you. That's very doable for this team right now.
I'm getting I hope I do Z proud here. I'm going to put my coach hat on. Want to know. Go 1-0 this week. That's all I want to worry about. I want to go 1-0 this week against Washington, right? So I don't know. This Washington is the old James Franklin tweet every week for Penn State. Washington. I'm worried about Washington. But run the ball. That's my parting thought, is run the ball. You saw what it looked like. So much of the league right now is so ingrained in base nickel and 4-2-5s and 5 DBs on the field. Come out in your 13, come out in your 22, come out in your 21, and pound the rock and stay with it for 60 minutes. It's going to set up your play pass to be as effective as it needs to be for you to get your chunk plays out of there. And it's going to allow you to kind of dictate the flow of the game, limit possessions, and then just be a well-coached team, tackle, play discipline, defense, but run the ball. That's my final thought.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about what Kyle just said about go big and make these guys play base defense, because a lot of teams don't practice it a lot. I know as a coach, we maybe had 3 or 4 plays a day against base stuff. And that, short yards goal line was different, but just out in the field, you don't really have a Sam backer anymore. You have 2 linebackers. The rest are all DBs. So force these teams to do something out of their normal during the week. Now they're going to have to do that, because we use a lot of the big guy out there. The extra O lineman. So these teams are getting into base, and we're having success against it. And then we take shots down the field more. For Tua, so there's not a bunch of DBs back there. There's 1 less back there covering Waddle or somebody. So that's how we got to approach it. And again, run the ball this week, build off what we did last week with the turnovers and the 3 and outs, and you should come back from Madrid with another W.
I wish I was going to Madrid and then Barcelona right after that. I'll tell you,
they're not sending us for the show out there?
I wish. You know what I mean? We're the #1 podcast network. We're going to have to up our game a little bit here now. And by the way, Kyle, you've been here a long time building this thing, man. So big congratulations to you, because this is one of the top channels on the network that you've built with your bare hands and your coach's hat.
Well, we They give us no shortage of things to talk about right now. It's not always necessarily the things we want to be talking about, but there's no shortage of things to talk about. And I've had a blast this year kind of welcoming you guys into the fray. And I look forward to our conversations twice a week. So if you are new to Locked On Dolphins and the squad shows every Wednesday after every game for an hour after every game, I cannot recommend enough, whether you watch on YouTube or you listen wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, hit subscribe, get all our great content. Me 5 days a week on a soapbox for 30 minutes a day, just rambling about whatever's on my mind. But this year, especially this edition with these squad shows, has been a ton of fun.
And no group therapy this week for Kyle. And by the way, you everydayers moving that needle nonstop for us. We love you as well. For Kyle Krabs, Locked On Dolphins, make sure you check him out all week. Jeff Scanina, former Miami Dolphins defensive lineman, among many teams he played and coached for. We're blessed to have him this year, as he says, jobless. So, hey, Trump's going to send him that $2,000 too. We're all going to get it. Let's go. All three of us will take that $6,000, and I still don't think that'll get us to Spain. But
probably not.
We'll be here Wednesday, and we'll be here Sunday after that game. And by the way, the Sunday game's 9:30 Eastern, so we'll be done early that day as well. So we almost get a day off that Sunday. We'll be loving it. But thank you so much for being here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and the #1 sports podcast network in the world. And thank you for watching Dolphin Squad Show 30-13. Go have fun. Go celebrate, Miami. You haven't had too many chances, and you certainly haven't had one like this in a long, long time. Keep your game tight, your mind right, and keep on saying it. Fins up. We'll talk to you on Wednesday. Thank you so much.